Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 79. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. And so, to our guest for this episode.
My name's Liz Jansen, and I am house manager of 78 Derngate, the Charles Rennie Mackintosh house.
Now, that is a jewel of the visitor economy for Northamptonshire. It has massive heritage value. You could almost put it into this exhibition and say it is a significant object for Northamptonshire. We've gone slightly smaller than that, but all the same, the object that we are talking about, it is significant and it is quite substantial. What are we talking about in this particular edition of the podcast series?
Yes, as you can imagine, when we were asked to pick something from our little hidden gem in the town, it was hard to find something that was going to be iconic enough and large enough for the audience to really appreciate. We would have loved to have taken the whole of the hall lounge, if you like, out of 78 Derngate and plonked that in the exhibition, but of course that wouldn't have been allowed. So yes, I've chosen with a group of other people from the museum one of the set of 4 chairs from the hall lounge that Bassett Loke and his wife commissioned Mackintosh to design for his front parlour.
Now, if you are from Northamptonshire, the name Bassett Loke may be familiar because he was famed for not making toys as such, but he was a scale model engineer, and we're talking about real craftsmanship in his work. He commissioned Mackintosh, Charles Rennie Mackintosh, to do what with 78 Derngate? Was it a remodel?
Well, if you like, I suppose it is, because we must understand that it wasn't designed by Mackintosh. It was a Georgian house, 100 years old, in 1916, when it was bought by the Bassett Lokes for £250. But Bassett Loke, being the kind of frustrated architect he was, wanted that house transformed. So he commissioned Charles Rennie Mackintosh, rather random when you think about this, to redesign the house. And there are 3 rooms in particular in 78 Derngate that reflect Mackintosh's genius, and also some exterior design and remodification of the interior that it was when Bassett Loke got there.
So was Charles Rennie Mackintosh given a blank sheet to do anything he wanted?
That's a very good question, John, because actually I would doubt that, because Bassett Loke was an exacting patron and very sure about what he wanted. But it's clear that in the hall lounge and in the guest bedroom, for instance, he gave Mackintosh free range to do whatever he wanted, but perhaps took a bit more control about other areas of the house.
Why do we get so excited about Charles Rennie Mackintosh? I mean, for starters, he's Scottish, so he comes from a long, long way away from Northamptonshire. He's very, very well known as a designer, and we're very lucky to have his work in Northamptonshire. But why is he so significant?
We are very lucky to have him in Northamptonshire, as you say, a Glaswegian architect with most of his work in Glasgow or parts of Scotland. In fact, this is the only architectural project outside Scotland. It's because he was forward-thinking. He was special in his ways of designing, not only a designer, an architect, an artist. He influences jewellery design, font design, so many different aspects, a furniture maker and a big name, but he had slightly fallen out of favour at the time when Bassett Loke contacted him. So that, if you like, gave him a new lease of life, which was great for Mackintosh and for Bassett Loke, because that's why we're here today.
Both men were men of precision. Bassett Loke with his engineering, Charles Rennie Mackintosh as an architect. We sometimes talk about styles of architecture, brutalist, Art Deco, whatever it might be. How would you describe Mackintosh's architecture, and how would you describe the work that he's done, such as we would find on this particular chair?
Well, it was influenced quite a lot by Viennese art, and you'll see aspects of Hoffmann in some of Mackintosh's work. There's echoes even of Frank Lloyd Wright. They were very popular in Austria, in both Mackintosh and his wife, slightly before Art Deco, and at the same sort of time as arts and crafts, but with a very different style, a very individual, a forward-thinking, futuristic style. Yet Mackintosh was also very fond of the past. So to have those two aspects in an artist, designer, architect, I think was quite extraordinary.
This particular chair is a functional piece of furniture, and it's perhaps easy to forget that that is the case. For the Bassett-Loke family, they would have just used it as a chair like you and I would use any other chair. Clearly, you're not invited to sit on this particular one at 78 Derngate. But if we look at the style of it, it's angular. It's not particularly curvaceous. Why does it stand out for you?
Exactly. It's not curvaceous. It doesn't beg you to sit on it and sort of slouch. They were a set of 4 chairs designed to go around a table. And as you say, angular in design, rectilinear, and using sort of angular shapes, which Mackintosh was very fond of. But it was style over substance. And I think because that appealed to Bassett-Loke, he was quite happy to have that in his front hall. But when we talk to visitors and they see these chairs in situ, in the main, they all say, my goodness, that does not look a very comfortable seat upon which to sit. But that's not what it's about with Mackintosh. It's all about style.
It is nevertheless a revered piece of furniture. Do we know what Charles Rennie Mackintosh thought of it, given that it was a piece of his work? It had to fit, it had to work with everything else.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I do not have the answer. Somebody back at 78 Derngate might know the answer to that. But I think as long as the patron was happy with the design, Mackintosh was happy with the design, I don't know whether or not we would ever find out exactly what he thought about it. In fact, we're not 100% sure that Mackintosh visited the property, which sounds very hard to believe. He was only living in London at the time, and he was very keen on being very close to his other architectural projects. So it's a little bit of a grey area. But all I was just going to add that the rest of the chairs are at the V&A in London. So they are also on display there.
So nationally recognised,
yes,
if not internationally
exactly,
recognised.
Yes. Well, we get visitors from all over the world, yeah.
Did Mackintosh do much in terms of private commissions and modelling of homes, if I can use that phrase, beyond 78 Derngate?
No, not really. He also designed a dining room suite for Bassett-Lokes, which they had in their cottage at Road. There is another property in Northampton that has a Mackintosh range of cupboards and stenciling, but otherwise it was mostly things like tea rooms or obviously the School of Art, bigger buildings in Glasgow and beyond, and big commissions for instance, Blackie, the publishers, a wonderful house called Hill House in Helensburgh, which is a beautiful property just outside Glasgow.
So is there any evidence to suggest that 78 Derngate and the furniture that is part of it, the chair that we have in the exhibition, for instance, is this Mackintosh toying with things that might have then been scaled up and might have appeared in other parts of the United Kingdom or elsewhere?
It could be. The most echo that this design of chair has is with the Chinese tea rooms he did for Miss Ingram, sort of much darker with the ebonized wood detail. But again, you've caught me on the hoof there, because I'm not sure what the correct answer would be to that.
Questions. Charles Rennie Mackintosh is revered in Glasgow, in the United Kingdom. Bassett-Loke is revered here in Northampton for what he did in terms of his engineering, and you can go and visit his work, of course, at 78 Derngate. Yeah. Charles Rennie Mackintosh designed the chair, which is part of the exhibition. You've already said that it's not the most welcoming piece of furniture if you were to put your bottom on it, but do you have a personal reaction to it as a piece of furniture, or can you only really appreciate it when it's back in its surroundings at 78 Derngate?
I can appreciate it as a standalone piece of furniture as well as when it's in its correct location. There's just something about the style that makes you smile.
Can you put your finger on what that is, though?
I think it's clean line. I think it's scale, No, it's not for comfort, but, when you think about a dining room chair, they don't necessarily need to be comfortable. They need to be practical. And the high back is quite practical, I think. But again, it's the style that gets me. I just think it's absolutely wonderful.
But it is also synonymous of its surroundings down the road from here.
Yes.
When it comes to this particular item, it is in the exhibition of Northamptonshire's stories, as exemplified by these 100 items. Why do you think it should be in the exhibition? Why does it justify its place?
We think it should be in the museum because it means it's something that we can take out from its original setting and let other people see it as a standalone item to perhaps appreciate it in fullness, rather than at the moment it's in the 78 Derngate behind a perspex screen. I think it will get a better viewing, if you like, as part of this wonderful exhibition.
And a final thought, with this particular piece of furniture, lots of people come to recognise the genius of Charles Rennie Mackintosh and the patronage of Bassett Loke and his family. Do people still come and study that work? Does it still resonate in the 21st century? Is it giving styling cues and hints and tips to people who might perhaps come and use 78 Derngate and this chair almost as a research document?
Well, it's hard to be sure about this, but I know for definite that visitors I've spoken to have often said to me, I'm going to style my next bedroom around this, or we're redoing the lounge. I want to use some elements. We also try to encourage schools and colleges to come along and just get inspired by not only the chair and other pieces of furniture, but the whole design of the house, from fabrics on the walls to furniture within.
So as much as anything else then, this chair and the house from which it came, it's actually the project of two individuals, two men with vision, two men of precision, two families, if you like, Bassett Loke and Mackintosh. Without the one, you wouldn't have had the other.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's a jewel for Northamptonshire.
Yes, it is. I mean, Eric Knowles once said it's a gem of a house in a jewel of a town, which I think is absolutely right. And Bassett Loke's story is just as fascinating. So again, if our visitors aren't that keen on Mackintosh or his furniture or designs, then come along and see what Bassett Loke got up to.
And look at his vision. Both men's
vision, yeah, ahead of their time.
Liz, lovely to have you in the series. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.